Welcome to the Finance Garage podcast, your go-to podcast for navigating the world of finance. I'm Jonathan, your financial guide, bringing the latest market trends, investment strategies, and financial news that matters to you. And by the way, I'm also going to share my other passion, which is cars.
At the SWU Group, we help everyday families achieve financial success. Our integrated services include financial planning, accounting, credit advisory, and estate planning. We're here to guide and support you every step of the way, from custom investment strategies to maximizing tax efficiency. We ensure your financial goals are met with peace of mind. Visit simonwu.com.au for more information.
Hey everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome to the first Finance Garage episode of 2025. As always, Jonathan Wu here, Principal and Senior Financial Advisor at the SW Group, and I hope everyone had a chance to listen to the first episode we released this year with a guest, which was with Paddy Hodgins from Firetrail Investments, where we deep dived into 40 years of experience that he has had in navigating Aussie small caps, the opportunities, and did talk about a stock that is a high conviction idea in their portfolios called Life 360. So if you haven't tuned into that, make sure you have a listen. So over the Christmas break, I was overseas with the family, and I decided to have a look, like I do every time I go away on holidays overseas, is to go to visit a bookstore and to sort of open my mind as to what type of content is available in the broad media in other countries. Because what we're, I guess, to a certain extent confined to in Australia is very Western stylized writing from Western writers. That's not to say that there aren't available books in other languages, but I'm actually also really referring to books that are in English but published by Asian authors, where I spend a lot of my time. And so I came about this book, which is fascinating. I never claimed to be particularly intelligent, so picture books are sometimes my thing. And this book called The Woke Salaryman, The Crash Course on Capitalism and Money, sort of piqued my interest. So I decided to have a look at it, and that's sort of the formation of today's episode, because the context of this book is really around how capitalism works, and based around the theory of life being unfair, as a context or as a start point. Now, this is not a, teaching you how to suck eggs sort of book. It's quite practical, but it does also outline the realities of living in a capitalist environment. And this particular author is based in Singapore. And the opening context of the book itself revolves around the fact that he's an advertising executive. And he realized that in Singapore, okay, you did your studies, you came back, you found your first full-time role in advertising, and you realize all the higher-ups are all Caucasian, expats, and very, very little local Singaporean talent, which begs the question as to why that is the case. And that's where he got to the life is unfair situation. Now, what also came about, which was a really big realization and something that I want to share with everyone, because I think it made a very big impact in my own thinking about different things, is this concept of resentment. Now, how does this relate to the book? Well, the book talks about the fact that, I'm a local Singaporean. I, don't seem to have many peers within my ethnicity that has really climbed the corporate ladder. And so I'm looking around and there's no Singaporeans. It's all white, Caucasian, expat executives. And that's when that concept of resentment kicks in. Okay. Now, for any of you that have ever suffered from resentment, I certainly have, it's very, very painful. Let's face it. The reality of it is resentment is a very, very painful thing. We all know it's unhealthy, but we just seem to harbor it for one reason or another, through some form of personal trauma, or working with particular people or someone else in your life. Now, the way that this author in this book described the concept of resentment, I thought was absolutely brilliant, right to a T, and something that's very personally relatable. And he said that resentment is effectively taking poison yourself and hoping for the other person to die. And I'm going to let that sink in for a minute, because this is a very, very in-your-face definition. Because when I read it, I felt it was very, very much in your face. And harboring resentment is probably one of the most unhealthy things to have in life. Now, why does this then conceptually relate to financial advice or anything that we talk about in the Finance Garage? Well, it does from the context of achieving financial success. Now, one of the things that we talk about with our clients here at the SW Group is about defining what that financial success is. People that come up to office could have resentment in the form of, oh, I wish I invested in this crypto thing because my friend made 40x, or I wish I hadn't bought this investment property because I didn't realize the hassles it would come with, and really, reduced materially my borrowing capacity to change my house that I live in. I resent buying all these small cap equities because my auntie told me to, and she said it would go up like crazy, and they never did, and I lost most of my money. All this is resentment. But the fundamental issue is that everyone has a different definition of financial success. You might want to retire with $3 million net assets. You might want to just pay off your house and have $1 million in super. Everyone is different. Resentment from an investment perspective is completely useless. Setting targets is what's important.
Ready to take the first step in investing, or just looking to continue growing your wealth without being inundated with financial information? With SWU Online Invest, we offer a range of expertly managed portfolios designed to match your investment needs. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, know that we will work tirelessly to ensure your investments are strategically positioned to maximize your goals. Visit swuonlineinvest.com.au today.
So how does this then relate back to life being unfair? Is that people naturally, some people have a natural advantage in life. We all have, to some extent or another. Could be related to health, could be related to money. But everyone, I believe, has a balance in life. Some things you are better at, and some things that you're not so good at. I'm a relatively tall person at 6'1", and that's great for basketball or for tennis. Terrible for lawn bowls, right? Now, I use that as sort of a comical sort of idea, but it is very important to understand what makes life fair or unfair. Because there are two things that really determine what your life is, okay? And in the concept of sociology, there's a concept called structure versus agency. These are the two variables that ultimately impact your starting point and your probability of success in life, okay? And it also explains the concept, or why you will look at the system, look at your personal scenario, and use the term, my life's unfair. So if we consider structure first, structure is the stuff that influences or limits choices and the opportunities available. If we then break that down, there are sort of 5 different areas that make up structure, which includes society, culture, politics, nature, and geography. So if we consider these, it's like, if I use Australia as the context, and we always say that Australia is the lucky country, well, we live in a society that's relatively peaceful. We have a melting pot of cultures in Australia, which allows us to generally be more tolerant of other cultures, broadly speaking, and it gives us a more broader understanding of the world in our, little island nation. We have a democratic system of government, which allows each man and woman to have a single vote to contribute to the destiny of the country. We have the nature that's around us, which is broadly fresh air. A lot of countries don't necessarily have all that much fresh air, like, say, Hong Kong. And we also have geography. So despite being thousands of kilometers from anywhere else that is largely relevant in the world, and we're in the southern hemisphere, we're also more isolated from war. This is what we call the structure part of sociology, and where that determines your probability of success. The other part of it is agency. So the agency part is to some extent connected to structure or different parts of structure, but it refers to how much free will an individual actually has in their choices. So if I sort of find a way to visualize it for everybody, structure is like the ocean that is around you, and agency is like the direction you want the boat to sail. So you're in that boat, okay? Structure is something you can't change. Agency is the direction you want to go, and therefore you can change it to a certain extent. Because what happens if the waves are high, the tide's not in your favor, the wind's not in your favor, the wind could be in your favor. The structure part is not something you can control. And the inequality comes about in many cases, and I use this as an analogy with my clients, is if you dig a hole in the ground for 2 weeks straight and don't stop, I applaud you for your perseverance. The issue is that you dug it with your hand. The same person that had a shovel took 2 hours, not 2 weeks. That's the inequality we're talking about, and that's the inequality of people having a head start, right? If we then relate that back to personal finance, and we're about focusing on achieving our clients' financial success, the things that are part of the agency portion of what determines your life destiny include things like your habits, the company you keep, right? So who you hang out with, who you spend time with, and those people more or less will also have an influence over your choices, your own values, as well as your ability to make the right decisions. And the decisions that you make will either optimize or, the opposite of optimize, decrease your chances of probability of success. But you have to remember what you can and cannot control, right? In the same way, if I use another really simple example, from a structure perspective, to highlight the point, is that if you grew up in a developed country versus a developing country, your opportunities were very different. You could be in a developing country, third world, without a share market, and therefore you have no opportunity to invest in equities. And even if you do, the cost of that is incredibly high. Now, if you harbor resentment because you see somebody else have a better head start in life than you, for whatever that reason may be, you have two choices. You either continue resenting, so going back to that definition from the book, which was brilliant, resentment is like taking poison yourself and hoping for the other person to die. That is very unhealthy, and it doesn't actually increase your probability of financial success based on the decisions that you make, because you're harboring this resentment. It is not psychologically good, and physically not good for your own health. Embracing the unfairness and thinking about the parts of the agency, not the structure, that you can change, right, would make a large difference. When clients come up to see us, I'm never of the opinion that just because you don't have a high salary, you can't be financially successful. That is absolutely rubbish, right? Now, there are different materiality levels of that, right? When someone comes up to you and says, oh, save 20% of your salary. Well, you can't just say save 20% of your salary, because if someone earns $10,000 a month, right, saving 20% of that is much easier than someone who earns $2,000 a month and trying to save 20% of that because their cost of living is so high. So everything is contextual. But the ability to reflect on your own habits and how do you think about changing those habits for the better without trying to compare yourself to others, which I always also believe is an incredibly unhealthy practice. He has a nicer car than me. He's got a better job than me. He makes more money than me. He's got a better house than me. He's got more kids than me. And later on, his kids or her kids are more successful than mine. All of these things are not within your control. What is in your control is your habits, your values, your actions. So when you sit down with your financial advisor, the first thing is not allow the financial advisor to just prescribe what they think, but you have a conversation with them about what you think you want to achieve and what you think is doable, and also talk about what you think is fair or unfair. That's not something that's part of our training, but it's something as part of what we do with our clients to work out what they want to achieve within the context of what they think is fair or unfair. So I hope that's a good way to start the year. Have a think about this, because I think it's definitely helped me reset some mindsets issues that I have myself. No one's perfect. And as always, please send your feedback to jonathan.wu@simonwu.com.au. And this year we have a huge range of guests coming on. People going from cybersecurity to what's happening in the industry super space. And also, I'm currently in the middle of organizing our guests that's coming from the car industry. That's going to talk about electric vehicles, talk about the structural changes that's occurring in the car industry, especially with the increasingly fierce competition from China, which we've already seen significantly pressure and impact Tesla sales globally. And what does that mean for consumers? And also, I'm organizing a guest that's going to talk about what to look out for when you're buying a second-hand car, something that I get a lot of questions on because most of my friends and colleagues know how much of a car nut I am. So stay tuned, lots of great content coming this year. And as always, remember to listen to the disclaimer at the end, because everything I said is not financial advice. So with that, see you next month.
This podcast is not financial product advice and is intended to provide information only. It does not take into account the investment objectives, financial situation, or needs of any person. You should assess whether the information is appropriate for you and consider talking to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Any investment examples are for illustrative purposes only. The information is taken from sources which are believed to be accurate, but Simon Wu, Jonathan Wu, SWU Financial Planning, and Personal Financial Services Limited accept no liability of any kind to any person who relies on the information contained in the podcast. Unless expressly stated, none of the information should be taken as a recommendation. For more information, please visit www.simonwu.com.au.